Did you know that Ricky Nelson, one of the greatest icons of American music, not only won hearts as a teen star, but also left a completely unexpected millionaire inheritance to his children? In 1985, the music world was in shock. Ricky died in a plane crash. At first glance, it seemed that her finances were completely ruined. Huge debts, expensive divorces, and extravagant spending gave the impression that her 4 children would not inherit anything. But a startling discovery changed everything. Ricky's true treasure lay in his music, and thanks to a recent will and court battles against record labels, what seemed like ruin turned into fortune. Today, you'll learn the full story of Ricky Nelson, from his childhood living the spotlight, to teenage stardom, to troubled relationships, to financial challenges, to the plain tragedy that claimed his life, to the astonishing legacy that secured wealth and recognition for his heirs. Get ready to discover how fame, tragedy, and talent mixed in Ricky Nelson's life, and how he became an icon that lives on today. Stay until the end, subscribe to the channel, and turn on Tinkerbell so you don't miss any amazing stories like this. On December 31st, 1985, the music world was rocked by tragedy. Ricky Nelson, one of the greatest youth idols in the history of the United States, died in a plane crash when he was only 45 years old. The plane he was traveling in, a former 1944 Douglas DC-3, malfunctioned badly and crashed into a field in Texas, killing Ricky, his fiancée Helen Blair, and other members of his band. Only the 2 pilots managed to survive. The news spread quickly, shocking fans and artists alike. Nelson had marked generations with his smooth voice and charismatic presence. But behind the scenes, his life was not as bright as it seemed. Financial problems, family quarrels, and a troubled marriage had left deep marks. The most surprising, however, came soon after his death. When the details of his inheritance began to appear, many believed that he had left only debts. His divorce from Chris Harmon had cost him more than $1 million, and overspending coupled with years of bad financial decisions seemed to have eaten away at the entire fortune he had built since his youth. It was rumored that the sons would inherit only bills to pay, and that nothing would remain of the empire he once erected. But an unexpected turn of events completely changed this scenario. During a court dispute, Ricky's brother David Nelson submitted an updated will, signed just 4 months before the tragedy. In it, the singer left all assets exclusively to his 4 children, Tracy, Gunnar, Matthew, and Sam. Neither the ex-wife nor the bride, nor even Ricky's mother were included. That began a long legal battle that exposed secrets, family feuds, and accusations of financial mismanagement. Still, the most surprising part was yet to come. Lawyers found Ricky's record labels had withheld millions of dollars in royalties over the decades. For years, he was one of the best-selling artists in the United States, but he never received his due in full. These discoveries opened millionaire lawsuits against giants of the recording industry, transforming what seemed to be an inheritance full of debt into an estate capable of enriching its heirs. At first, the case seemed lost, but when the real numbers came to light, even the judges were impressed. The figures were so high that they completely changed the future of the family. Suddenly, Ricky's children, who feared inheriting only trouble, had access to a windfall fortune, a direct result of their father's talent, as well as the legal battles fought on his behalf. However, not everyone benefited. An out-of-wedlock son, Eric Jude, was not recognized in the will and was left out of the share, a situation that generated controversy and new clashes in the courts. This detail further heightened the drama surrounding the inheritance and showed how Ricky's life, even after death, continued to be shrouded in conflict and surprising revelations. Ricky Nelson was born on May 8, 1940, in Teaneck, New Jersey, into a family that already breathed music and entertainment. His parents, Ozzie and Harriet Nelson, were well-known artists, and from an early age, little Ricky was exposed to the world of radio and television. While still a child, the family moved to Los Angeles in search of better opportunities. It was there that his fate began to draw itself. In 1944, the radio program The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet gained enormous popularity throughout the country. The production showed the daily life of the Nelson family, mixing fiction and reality, and soon became a fever. In 1952, success migrated from radio to television. Ricky, then only 12 years old, gained fixed space in the cast, alongside his brother David. the public followed their routines, their discoveries, and even their teenage blunders. With each episode, he won fans with his charisma and naturalness on camera. But Ricky had something besides acting talent. Music ran through his veins. Inspired by artists such as Elvis Presley, he began singing in appearances within the show itself. The result was immediate. Viewers fell in love with her soft voice and youthful style. In 1957, at the age of 17, Ricky released his first single, A Teenager's Romance. It was a resounding success, selling hundreds of thousands of copies within a few weeks. Soon after came Bebop Baby, who consolidated his name on the charts. That same year, he recorded Poor Little Fool, which made history by becoming the first #1 on the newly created Billboard Hot 100. From then on, Ricky Nelson stopped being just a child star on television and began to be recognized as one of the great names in rock and roll of the time. His style blended youth, romanticism, and rebelliousness in just the right measure, which made him an idol for millions of young Americans. Between 1957 and 1962, Ricky charted more than 30 songs on the Billboard Top 40, rivaling even Elvis Presley in popularity. At the same time, he continued to act in the Family series, which further expanded his visibility. He was, in fact, a media phenomenon, an artist who managed to shine on two fronts at once. But early success would also bring its challenges. Behind the image of the smiling and talented young man, Ricky was beginning to feel the weight of expectations and pressures imposed by an industry that did not forgive slips. The boy who had grown up on camera would soon have to face the difficulties of adulthood, both on stage and off. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, Ricky Nelson was already one of America's greatest youth icons. His songs were constantly topping the charts. His image graced magazines and television shows, and his concerts filled gyms across the country. He was seen as the perfect boy, handsome, talented, charismatic, and always associated with the traditional American family. But behind the fairy tale look, Ricky was beginning to feel the pressure to sustain that image. The transition from teen idol to adult entertainer was not simple. While other musicians of his generation experimented with more daring styles, Ricky sought to establish himself as a serious singer, trying to balance his musical identity between rock and roll and country music, a genre for which he always had great admiration. During this period, he released albums that showed artistic maturity, such as Rick is 21, 1961, in which he officially assumed his adult identity, putting aside his childhood nickname. The album brought songs that reinforced their versatility, but also made it clear that the audience was beginning to change. The young people who had grown up with him were searching for new sonorities, while record labels pushed for quick hits that would keep his name going. In parallel with his success, Ricky faced personal dilemmas. He married in 1963 Kristen Harmon, daughter of another famous television couple. The marriage, initially celebrated as the union of two families dear to the American public, soon proved turbulent. Despite having 4 children, Tracy, Gunnar, Matthew, and Sam, the relationship was marked by quarrels, jealousy, and mutual accusations. Ricky, often on tour, felt the weight of being absent, while Kristen resented the chaotic lifestyle of her artistic career. Backstage, Ricky also faced the specter of comparisons. Many critics saw in him only a product of television, unable to reinvent himself artistically. This vision bothered him deeply, as he had a real passion for music and wished to be respected for his talent, and not just for his youthful fame. Despite these pressures, Ricky still achieved remarkable moments. In 1963, he released Fool's Russian, one of his most memorable songs. On television, he remained a beloved figure, although the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet began to lose steam, ending in 1966 after 14 years on the air. The end of the series marked a drastic change. For the first time, Ricky would have to walk without the support of the family structure that had driven him since childhood. The new phase would be fraught with uncertainty. The wunderkind now needed to assert himself as a man, an artist, and a father, in an increasingly competitive and unforgiving industry. Between glories, personal crises, and searches for recognition, Ricky Nelson was living the peak of his career. But he was also beginning to face the first signs that his trajectory would be marked by intense ups and downs. After the end of the adventures of Ozzie and Harriet in 1966, Ricky Nelson entered a challenging period. Television, which for years had boosted his career, was no longer a platform available to keep him in the spotlight. In addition, the music industry was undergoing rapid change. The rise of the British invasion with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones redefined the rock scene, leaving many American idols of the 1950s struggling to reinvent themselves. Ricky felt the impact immediately. His songs began to be less prominent in the charts, and the attention of the youth audience migrated to new artists. Despite this, he did not let himself be put down and decided to take control of his career more directly. He formed the Stone Canyon Band, a band of his own with young and talented musicians, including Randy Meisner, who would later become part of the Eagles. This decision allowed Ricky to experiment with different sounds, mixing rock and country before this fusion became a popular trend. However, the challenges were great. The new band required high investments, equipment, rehearsals, travel, and salaries, all at Ricky's own expense. The payoff in the short term was limited. His albums, such as Rick Sings Nelson and In Concert, showed his musical evolution, but did not achieve the commercial success expected. It was as if the audience still only wanted the teen idol they had won a decade earlier. In addition to professional pressure, his personal life also became turbulent. His marriage to Kristen Harmon was facing increasingly serious crises. The couple could not control spending, and at the same time maintain the standard of living that the public expected from Hollywood stars. Bills piled up, homes were expensive, and lavish vacations became an untenable necessity. Conflicts between Ricky and Kristen affected the children, making the family environment increasingly tense. The 1970s brought even more challenges. Ricky came under severe criticism after frustrating shows, such as the infamous Madison Square Garden concert in 1971. When trying to present a new repertoire, the audience rejected him, asking for the old hits. Humiliated in front of the audience, he realized that pleasing everyone was impossible, and that nostalgia for his own teenage image was stronger than his desire to innovate. Despite this, Ricky reacted. Inspired by that experience, he composed the song Garden Party, which became one of his biggest late hits. The song carried a clear message. You can't please everyone, so you have to please yourself. She reached the Billboard Top 10, bringing a brief resumption of prestige and reminding the public of her undeniable talent. Even with this small return, the overall picture remained difficult. Record labels did not know how to position him. Contracts became increasingly complicated, and family and financial pressure continued. Ricky Nelson, who for years had been seen as America's golden boy, now struggled to maintain his career and his sanity amid a world that was changing faster than he could keep up. As the 1970s wore on, Ricky Nelson faced a harsh reality. Fame didn't automatically translate into financial stability. Despite continuing to perform shows and record albums, the overspending, driven by a lavish lifestyle and the pressure of maintaining appearances, quickly drained his money. Houses, cars, trips, and high-end parties consumed almost everything he earned, and the costs of maintaining his family and touring became unsustainable. The marriage to Kristen Harmon, which once seemed like the perfect Hollywood couple, was beginning to fall apart. The relationship was marked by constant conflict, mutual accusations of abuse and neglect, and an inability to cope with financial problems. The couple even spent more than $1 million just on court battles during the divorce, and the emotional strain affected not only them, but also their 4 children, Tracy, Gunnar, Matthew, and Sam. At the same time, Ricky was trying to reinvent his career. He bought an old aircraft to save on touring trips and maintain more privacy. But what was supposed to be a solution turned out to be a constant danger. The old Douglas DC-3, bought for $118,000, had problematic engines and frequent failures, and all band members were afraid to fly. The pressure of keeping artistic and financial commitments led him to ignore warnings about the plane's insecurity. His health also began to deteriorate under stress and the exhausting pace of work. On stage, he still demonstrated talent and energy, but backstage showed a tired man, emotionally and financially burdened. Each decision seemed to aggravate the situation. Tours to cover debts, new investments that did not return, contracts with record companies that did not give him autonomy. On a personal level, Kristen's final separation was traumatic. The ex-wife went on to question his ability as a father and accuse him of drug addiction, while Ricky hit back with allegations of alcohol abuse and parental neglect. The court battle dragged on for 5 years, consuming time, money, and energy. The result was the division of custody of the children. But in order to pay $4,000 a month in pension that, although low in the face of the total expenses of the family, still pressured Ricky to work without rest. Even facing mounting debts and personal problems, Ricky did not give up on music. He continued to write, record, and perform, seeking ways to win back audiences and keep his passion alive. But the shadow of financial difficulties and family conflicts remained constant, making it clear that the life of a teen idol had turned into an intense adult struggle, full of losses and sacrifices. On December 31st, 1985, Ricky Nelson boarded a flight that would never reach its destination. Determined to fulfill concert commitments and keep his career active, he used his own plane, an old Douglas DC-3 from 1944, which already had recurring mechanical problems. Despite warnings from the team, Ricky insisted on flying, pressured by the touring schedule and the financial need to maintain his life. The plane, en route to Dallas, began to have intense smoke in the cabin, making it impossible for the pilots to see the instruments. In a desperate effort, the commander had to partially fly blindly. At about 17:14, the aircraft crashed in a field near the airstrip, colliding with trees and bursting into flames. Among the dead were Ricky Nelson, his fiancée Helen Blair, and 5 members of his band and crew. Only the pilots survived. Ricky was only 45 years old. The news shocked the music world. An idol of a generation, a pioneer in the transition from radio to television, he left an invaluable artistic legacy and an extremely complicated financial situation. With debts racked up due to divorce, airplane maintenance, and extravagant lifestyles, many believed their 4 children would inherit virtually nothing. But an unexpected twist changed everything. Initially, it seemed that there was no will, and ex-wife Kristen Harmon tried to take control of the inheritance. However, Ricky's brother David Nelson found a will dated just 4 months before the tragedy. This document exclusively named Ricky's 4 children as heirs and indicated David as executor of the estate. Despite this, the legal battle is not over. His ex-wife Helen Blair and other family members tried to claim parts of the estate, questioning insurance, paternity, and outstanding expenses. The situation was further complicated by the revelation of an out-of-wedlock son, Eric Jude Crew, born from a relationship in 1980. Eric was completely excluded from the will, and the courts confirmed that he was not entitled to the inheritance. As creditors and family bickered, the startling truth emerged. Ricky's true treasure was not in cash or real estate, but in his music catalog. Decades of royalties, including those from digital formats and streaming, added up to a hidden fortune. However, much of this money had been misappropriated or underestimated by record labels such as Capitol Records, who refused to provide full audits, applied improper deductions, and withheld revenues. Only after protracted lawsuits, including a lawsuit against the Capitol in 2011 and another against Sony Music in 2020, did the heirs finally have access to the real earnings. The agreements resulted in millionaire payments and guarantees of future transparency, turning Ricky Nelson's children into real millionaires. Fate, cruel and ironic, showed that tragedy could be accompanied by belated justice. Ricky Nelson left young, but his artistic legacy not only survived, but also became the basis of wealth and recognition for his children, proving that even in the face of death and chaos, music remains an eternal heritage. After years of legal battles, Ricky Nelson's children have finally begun to reap the rewards of their father's talent and work. The real treasure was not in the luxurious houses, expensive cars, or past tours, but in the musical catalog that had been carefully built up over decades. Each song, from the first hits with Imperial Records to the most mature recordings, generated royalties, especially with the emergence of digital platforms and streaming, a source of income that Ricky could never have imagined in the golden years of television and radio. The impact of his music was not limited to material wealth. Songs such as Garden Party, Bebop Baby, and Traveling Man have remained in the memory of fans of different generations, inspiring musicians and influencing the history of American rock and pop. Ricky Nelson had pioneered bringing television and music together, showing how talent could transcend platforms and reach massive audiences. A lesson that still resonates in the entertainment industry today. For his children, inheritance meant more than money. It was a link to their father that they had lost too soon. Tracy, Gunnar, Matthew, and Sam inherited not only legal rights, but also the responsibility to preserve and cherish the legacy of one of the icons of American music. Each contract, each license, and each new release was a way to keep Ricky's memory alive, allowing new generations to discover his talent. Beyond the financial impact, Ricky Nelson's story is a wake-up call about the challenges of growing up in the spotlight, the volatility of fame, and the importance of estate planning and protection. His life, full of successes and tragedies, shows that the real fortune of an artist is often not in what is seen, but in what is kept alive through art. Decades after his death, Ricky continues to be celebrated as one of the first teen idols, a versatile musician, and an example of how talent and creativity can overcome adversity. Even if personal life has been marked by ups and downs, his story, filled with glory and pain, of late losses and victories, remains a powerful lesson about perseverance, legacy, and the enduring strength of music. Thus, Ricky Nelson, although he left young, left an impact that transcends time, ensuring that his name, his songs, and his influence live on, not only in the memory of his children, but in the hearts of fans around the world. The boy who grew up under the television spotlight has become, finally, eternal. Despite all the fame and success of Ricky Nelson, his real fortune was not in cars, houses, or concert contracts. The real treasure lay in his music catalog, an estate that continued to generate royalties decades after his death. But the path for his children to really benefit from this legacy was not simple. After Ricky's death, many record labels underestimated or withheld earnings from his songs, using improper deductions or confusingly accounting for revenues. Capitol Records, for example, applied old rates designed for CDs and vinyls to digital formats, hurting the actual calculation of sales and streams. In addition, complete audit data was withheld, making it impossible for heirs to know how much they were actually owed. In 2011, the Nelson family filed a lawsuit against Capitol Records, claiming between $100 million and $250 million. The lawsuit alleged fraud and concealment of revenues, and the result was a significant victory, ensuring payments and greater transparency. But the episode did not end there. In 2020, another major lawsuit was filed, this time against Sony Music, focusing on international streaming royalties. The label was imposing internal inter-office fees, reducing revenues by up to 68% before they reached the family. The lawsuit culminated in a landmark settlement, securing multi-million-dollar payouts and a 36% increase in future royalties. Only then did Ricky's children begin to realize the true extent of the inheritance. What seemed like a nearly lost heritage has turned into a real and lasting fortune, built on decades of hits that still resonate in the hearts of fans. More than money, this victory symbolized justice and recognition. Ricky Nelson's work, carefully created throughout his life, finally guaranteed stability and wealth to his heirs, proving that even after tragedies and years of injustice, true art is an eternal patrimony. And this is how Ricky Nelson, despite the tragedy, left an incredible legacy to his children, a fortune hidden in his music that was only revealed after years of legal battles. His life reminds us that true art never dies, and that even after difficulties, talent and dedication can turn into something eternal. If you like this story, don't forget to leave your comment below and tell us what surprised you the most about Ricky Nelson's life. And of course, click on the Tinkerbell and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next videos full of curiosities and incredible stories about great artists. Thanks for watching, and until the next video.